guys, just a quick rundown on the video. We're going to be replacing the shocks on a 2013 Ford F-250 four-wheel drive. Probably similar for the other models as well, but we're going with monotube nitrogen gas shocks, a little upgrade from the factory ones. And the truck's got 135,000 kilometers on it, about 85 or 90,000 miles. So it's due for that. It's also due for a whole bunch of stuff in the front end to get rid of the death wobble, which is basically the combination of all the wear and tear on all of those joints in the front end, ball joints and everything, and steering components. When you add it all up, it has slack in the steering. So you hit a pothole and it starts to get this frequency and shakes around. This did help. I've already done it and driven around and it works really well. It helps, but it's not getting rid of the slop in the components. It's just helping to break down that frequency so it doesn't rattle as much. It doesn't mean I'm stopping with this. I've got $2,200 in parts to go on the front of that truck. Like, subscribe, get notifications, and in the next couple of weeks when we put those parts on, you can see those videos, see how to do it. Trying to keep it as simple as possible so that you can do this in your driveway. So if you want to do it yourself, $2,200 in parts is probably a couple $1,000s in labor, depending on if you're getting it all done at once or if you're getting it done a piece at a time and you have to take something off and put it back on. I didn't want to do that because I didn't want to wreck any of the rubber boots, and because all these are grease fitting new parts versus the old factory ones that you couldn't grease. So I don't want to tear any of those rubber boots on the ball joints and stuff like that. So follow along and we'll get out there and do the project. So let's get to it.
Hey guys, this weekend we're going to change the shocks on an F-250. So over this video you're going to get the wrench sizes and the torque specs for an F-250. This is a 2013. Most of them are probably the same, but you can check that out if you're not sure. Anyway, stick around, we'll get this video done.
Okay, so for the bottom, I'm just going to use the impact. It's an 18 millimeter bolt, and there's a little tab on the other side that holds it, so you don't need a wrench on the other side. So I'll just crack these off. Alright, there we go. We're going to clean these up with a wire brush when we put them back in, and we're also going to clean up this little pocket where the shock goes. This has all been undercoated, so there's lots of gravel and sand stuck to it, so we're going to clean that up, get it back to kind of stock, and that way there's not a bunch of sand grinding up on the new shocks. Okay, so the bottom one's out. The top one, I've seen people go up through the top with extensions on their ratchet, but these are easy to get to. I don't even have to open my hood and I can change this. So the top is going to be a 21 millimeter for the factory. If you have an aftermarket one going back in, it might not be the same. The one I have is different, but we'll get to that. So I'm going to take this off. This isn't going back on anywhere, it's junk, so I'm just going to chuck my vice grips on here. There is a wrench size for that, but I'm not worried about it. So it's a fairly long thread. It's going to take a little while to ratchet it up. I'll just fast forward that, and we'll take that off. But you can do it without opening the hood. You can do it without a bunch of extensions, and you can see what you're doing here. Once you get this thing up the thread a little bit, you're going to switch over to a short 21 millimeter because your ratchet's going to get up tight to your fender liner, where I can't get this on right now because the bolt's so long, but as that bolt or that nut goes up, I'll switch over to a short one, and then I can still do all this from inside the tire well. Now if your truck is really old, I gave this a little bit of WD-40 yesterday just to make sure. This isn't a super old truck, but there's a lot of sand stuck to it because of the undercoating. It's not really rusty, but it's got a little grime on it. But it'll make this job easier if you get everything loosened up.
switched over to the short one. All right, and we don't need this anymore. All right, we got this unbolted, so all we're gonna do now is take a flat screwdriver. It might just pull out, but if it doesn't, we'll take a flat screwdriver to the bottom and just lever that out. It'll pop out, and that's it. Okay, so before I put the new one in, I'm just gonna take a wire brush and knock off some of the clumps of dirt here. Now, the old ones lasted 10 years or 8 years, but they didn't start out on a pile of dirt, so that was collected over a while. So we'll give these new ones a clean start, and hopefully they last longer because of it. They don't squeak and creak. Get this all cleaned up. Bottom too. Now the bottom's got quite a bit of dirt in it because it catches. There's no little hole on the bottom to drain the water or anything like that. So I'm just gonna get this thing undone. Then I'm gonna hit it with some Crown rust proofing spray after I'm done, just to, because there's no paint left on this. It just sat there and got cruddy and sandy and all kinds of salt and stuff in there. So you don't see back here for another 80,000 miles, so tune it up. Okay, let's take a look at the old shock and the new shock. All right, so this is the stock Ford shock. This just has oil and a valve in there, so when that piston goes through, it's got holes in it. As this goes up and down, it dampens the shock load on the truck. This shock is a Gabriel Control Max. It is nitrogen charged, so it's got a chamber of gas in here that keeps pressure on the oil that this second piston here is floating through, and that keeps it from bubbling up and cavitating. And if it gets an air pocket in there with all those bubbles, what happens is it slams, because the air doesn't compress, or air compresses and the oil doesn't, so it gives it a free moving spot. It smashes the crap out of your shock and all the components that it's supposed to protect. So that's why I got those. Now this shock comes with a wire keeping it squished shut, and I'm gonna leave that on until I get it over there, and I'll show you why. This one, I can just show you this real quick if I can. I can push down on this if it doesn't move around on me, and it just stays there. It doesn't have any active ability. It's just going through the oil. This one here, if I cut that wire, it's gonna pop out, and I'll show you that when we do the install. So I'm gonna leave that on, make it easier to install. Let's go do that now. When you get ready to install this shock, depending on what brand you got, this brand, I think there's 3 or 4 selling the same thing. It's just a different color, but they have these 2 washers. One has a big hole. That's the one that's going to go on the shaft first. Then you're going to have the rubber, and then the smaller washer goes on and stops at the threads. This shock doesn't have a torque spec. It has a nylon lock nut that stops when it hits that shoulder. Can't go any further, so there's no torque spec. It just goes till it stops. And there's another rubber piece that goes on here, and then you get the washer. So let's get this thing put on and show you how easy it is. So the bottom of this install is really easy. This just goes in here. I put a little grease in there, and bolt's gonna go back in, and then you're going to catch this little it's basically like a little disposable wrench here. It just goes in here. so you don't have to get a nut and wrench up there. Just get that in there so that it's going to go through. Let's see if I caught it. You'll know if you catch it here. So the threads start. Okay, so this one is a 15. Now, I could tighten this up with the impact real quick, and I'm still going to torque it, but because my camera's in the way, I'm going to use a ratchet here. Now, I'm not going to tighten it super tight. I'm just going to get it close to where it needs to be torqued. I'll wait till the top is in before I tighten it the rest of the way. Okay, so that's movable, but it's still loose. Okay. Now, this is the easy part if you do it right. Let's check. Okay. So for the top, what you got to do is, first I'm going to get this top rubber piece off. Now, because the wire's still on here, I didn't take it off out of the pack, I left it on. All I got to do is cut this wire and aim this at the hole. And oh, it's still catching a little bit. There we go. And it's moving. Okay, now the old shock wouldn't have went up like that, so there is a gas, a difference with the gas in there. Now I put the top on, make sure that's on there, put the other washer on, and I don't have much to tighten, but start to tighten this up. You might have to put some vice grips there. There is no wrench on this one. There is a little tiny, I think it's maybe a 1/4 inch wrench at the top, but it's no good if you're trying to use a ratchet. So I'm going to tighten this up. Now the new shock for these Gabriel shocks on this truck, it's a 19 millimeter. So the other one was a 21. Taking it off, this one's a 19. All right. So like I said before, there's no wrench fitting on the new one, but don't put your vice grips on the shaft, otherwise you'll scratch up the chrome and it'll rust. So we're gonna get this on here, 19 millimeter. And once this starts to spin, we know we hit the bottom of that shoulder on that shaft, and instead of a torque spec, you basically just bottom out. Okay, now I got resistance. Yeah. That's it. That's as far as it goes. And the nylon lock nut won't let it come back, so that's good there. Now, don't forget that you've cut that wire. Don't forget to take it out of the bottom. Now, you want to work this boot up here and get the little lip on the inside of the boot over this bottom ring. Now, there's a little rib in there, a little ring. You want to get it in between so it stays put. If you don't, got a chance of it popping off. Also, if you zip tie this shock boot down too low, if you do a lot of four-wheeling, this probably isn't your shock, but if you do, if there's a lot of suspension travel, you can probably pull that off because it's just on there by pressure fit. Now there's 4 holes in the top of that washer up there. Now what I did on my other side, because I've already done the passenger side on this, is I cut a little notch in the boot. The first boot that starts to fit around this so tight that it wouldn't let water through. Because there's a zip tie that goes around this. So I put a little nick in one of these, and that way if anything gets in the top, the water can come down and drain, so it's not sitting on top of the shock. So I'll get this at a right height here. So I went over to the other side to see what I did over there, and I drove around on that one so it hasn't affected anything. It looks good over there. Just gonna put this here, tighten it up. Now these things come with stickers. You can put them on if you want. You don't have to, it doesn't matter. All right, so that's gonna stay there. Take this, cut the extra off, and gonna do just a little nick. See, the top of the shock is here, so I put a little nick on this one here at the bottom because that's the lowest place that can drain from. Just nick a little triangle out of there. And also the one that sits at the top of the piston or the cylinder here, because that's the one that stuff can sit on and rot out. So there's two little nicks there. And if I go to the boat launch and this thing fills with water, it'll drain out there. I'm not too worried about a little bit of dust getting in there. Okay, so that is the front shock. Oops. That's the front shock. It's pretty easy to do. Now, there is no more torque spec on the top, but the bottom still needs to be torqued. So we're gonna take a second, get the torque specs. I'll get the torque wrench and we'll tighten this up. Okay, so the bottom torque spec on this truck is 110. Well, on my truck it is. On your truck, that's gonna be up to you to make sure, but 110 for the bottom. And the top, I think the stock was 46, but nobody's gonna put the stock shocks back on. And it'll be different, I would think, on aftermarket if the nut size is different, because the tension would be different. So 110 on the bottom, and then the top on this one just bottoms out, so it's okay. And remember that Gabriel shock's got a 19-inch wrench size, where the stock one was 21 millimeter. Sorry, yeah, 19 millimeter and 21 millimeter. So 110 is your foot-pounds. We're only going 1/8 of a turn at a time here. There it is. There it is. Okay, good to go. There we go. Okay, so my cameras are in the place where I need to be to work, but the cameras need to be where they are so you guys can see. So this might be a little tricky. Anyway, 15 millimeter on one side of this bolt, and 18 on the nut. Take this off the impact. If I can get in there. Yep. Maybe I'll put it in reverse. There it is. Okay, now up top is an 18. Now I might be able to get more space if I let this swing down. It might just drop. Hopefully not crush my camera. Okay, so not a lot of life left in that thing. It still springs down a little bit, but not great. Okay. If I can get the impact up there, I can save myself some time here. But my camera is like right on top of it, so let's see here. Get some safety glasses for this, because you'll be eating a lot of crud if you don't. How can I get there? Okay, that's 2. Now can I get this thing off of here? Might need a screwdriver. Oh, maybe not. All right, let's get out of here. All right, so once again, this is the factory shock. This is the new shock. Now this one, I don't know if there's gas pressure in this or not. Let me know in the comments below if you know this, but when I push this in, it does extend back out slowly. This one comes out really fast. So when I cut that wire, unlike the front one that has a pin on the top and an eye on the bottom, this has got an eye hole on both. I'm not going to be able to just cut the wire and line it up to where it's going to go. It's going to come out fast enough that I'm probably not going to get that bolt on there. I'll have to recompress it, and it is a stiff push. I can get it 3 or 4 inches and then I'm kind of stuck. So just where you have to push it into the axle, the housing doesn't let you really get your palm in there. So I'm going to show you what I did on the other side if you have no tools, really. If you have a jack, you can use a jack. I cut a block of wood with a little U shape in the bottom of it, and that would have worked as well, but I'm trying to do it in a way that anybody at home could do it. So I'll show you that in the next piece here. Okay, I'm gonna try this from the other angle here. And gotta get this up here. If I can. All right. I put a little grease on there just to help it get on there. I'm just going to put this on loosely. So I can move it around. Now, if by chance I'm lucky enough to snag this thing on the bolt as it's coming down after I cut the wire, that will be amazing. But I'm not expecting that because I tried it last time and I didn't get it. So the goal though is, oops, moving stuff around here, to get this thing through. As this shock is decompressing, and that's not, I doubt that's going to happen. Like I said, it's not an easy push on this thing. So the chances of me getting that down there in the speed that it's going to take, unlikely. Let me try anyway. 1, 2, 3, go. Oh, 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 oh. It's going to go. Come on, you bugger. Oh, I missed it. There's no way I'm going to be able to push that back up by hand. So, what I'm going to do, I'm going to give it a try. I'll try it a little bit if I can. No. Yeah, there's no chance. Okay, so that's just resting on there. I'm going to let that pop out. I'm also going to cut that wire at the top before I forget, because it doesn't need to be there. Now, you will pinch your fingers if you're not careful. So, maybe make sure somebody knows you're at the driveway doing this so you don't get pinned to the floor or get your fingers stuck in there. So, just so you're warned. Now, I'm going to pull this out because it's going to drop. And there's no way I'm going to get that pushed back up. I'm going to try. But if it was like yesterday, no, I'm not. Okay. Now, that gets almost to the ground. So if you get your chest under there, you're going to be there until dinner time when people find you. So don't do that. Now, what I did was took a couple of holes in the frame here. Does this side have them? I don't know. Let's see. there's a couple holes in the frame anyway. And I used a ratchet strap to draw this thing back up. Now you got to make sure you get the right side in the right spot, or you're not going to get it out again. They're cutting your ratchet strap, but if you do it right, you won't have to worry about that. Okay, so I got a hole in the frame here, and I got a hole in the frame way up here. And what I'm going to do, obviously you're going to see what's coming, but now, again, this thing's not touching the floor, but it's close. Not touching the driveways, but it's close. So what you want to do is make sure you're not under this when you're tightening it. You're going to tighten it up and get it to the right height. And it's a stiff, you got to really hold it, because the ratchet strap, not being perfectly aligned, wants to slip off. But what I'm going to do is tighten this up, get a few rounds on it here so it stays put. You got to get it centered, because it will work its way off if you don't. Center it right on that bottom loop. Okay, now I can tighten this up. Just keep your hand so that that belt's not going to slip off. Don't put your hand between anything in the end of this shock, because it will pinch bad. So we're just going to work our way up here. Got a couple more goes. Just jammed up my belt here. Another inch if I get it. I might have started with too much slack here. Let's see if I can get it. There it is. Okay, now just going to loosen that up a bit. And now I can just hit this release here, and it'll jump a tooth. And now I can just adjust it. There we go. Just like that. No jack. $8 tool or $5 tool, wherever you're getting these things. So now you're going to be like, oh, Greg, you got your ratchet strap stuck in your shock. Well, we're just going to take the ratchet strap out of its buckle, and we'll just slide it through. I got some grease on there. I'm just going to smush that on there. Okay, now I did take that nut off and put it on. Now again, you got a 15 on one side and 18 on the other, and you've got some torque specs here. Now this, because it's mounted the same as the factory one, we can use the factory torque specs, and we're going to deal with a 66 foot-pounds on the bottom, 52 foot-pounds on the top. And I've got my impact here just to get some turns on these threads, so I don't have to screw around for too long up here. Just snug it up first. And I'll get this one snugged up too. No point in screwing around. Now I've got to loosen this, so I've got to set this up. This wrench is a little bit screwed. There we go. Alright, so we're going to snug this up a little bit. Okay, now put this on here. Okay, this is where a lift would be nice, but you don't have a lift, or you can't get to your buddy's house, so you're doing it in the driveway. is. There it is. Okay, now the only thing left is getting the boot on here. Okay, I think we're good. We got her. Get all this stuff out of here and see how long that took us. Okay. So earlier today it was pretty sunny out, so I couldn't get in here without getting a lot of sunlight screwing up with the focus and things like that. So just thought I'd show you how this turned out. Get in there, and I still have to spray the crown rust spray on this, but everything's torqued up. The little tab, I don't know if you saw that in the camera, but there's a little tab in there. It's welded to a nut, and that's so that you don't need a wrench up there when you drive that bolt in. And then up here, that's how much thread shows before that nut hits the top of that rod. Just in case it was too bright, you can just see the two little notches I put in here. One little notch there, one little notch right there. And that is the lowest point in the shock that can drain water. And then this is sitting right at the top of where the tube of the shock is. So that way if water gets in there, it's gonna free it up and get out of there. Anything that gets past that should get down to that one. I just don't want it sitting in there. Like I said, I deliver docks in the summer, so I can get up to the frame in water pretty easily. Some of these bolt launches are pretty shallow. And there's the back shock. Same thing, little notch in the bottom of that accordion shock cover just to drain some water. Okay, that is about as easy a way to change all that stuff as you can do. Like almost no tools and no lift, no nothing. Didn't even have to open the hood. So if you liked that video, if it was useful, and you want to learn about the death wobble repairs to fix all the other stuff, subscribe, because those videos are coming up soon. And because I gotta get those parts on, I can't drive the truck very far with a death wobble. And luckily my town is 2 miles long, so I've been sticking to town and nothing's open anyway. But we're gonna change all the parts so that I can get the new tires on. And I don't want to wear the sides of the tires with bad alignment. So if you want to see an alignment, if you want to see all that front end rebuild, subscribe, leave a comment if you like the videos, if this is what you want to see more of. I'm going to be doing a video on this fireplace, which is actually going to be an entertainment center. So the TV screen is going to look like the fireplace. So that's a video I'm working on. I'm doing a renovation right now. So there's a bunch of different videos coming in all kinds of different topics. But if you like this, or if you want to see certain things, let me know. Leave a comment. We'll see you guys next time.